Early in the 20th century, Amelia, Christine, and Leah Papin were raised south of Le Mans, France. Clemence Papin was unable to care for her daughters after her marriage to Gustave collapsed, so she gave Christine and Amelia to orphanages. Christine was greatly affected by her mother's abandonment, despite the fact that she frequently visited them. Leah was raised by an uncle till she became 15 years old. Christine and Leah looked for domestic help jobs in Le Mans, while Amelia went on to become a nun. Christine and Leah were close sisters, who liked to work together frequently, despite being 6 years different in age. They worked for Monsieur René Lancelin at 6 Rue Bruer in Le Mans in 1926. Leah worked as the chambermaid, while Christine was the cook. They shared a little bed and resided in the attic of the house. The two women had a reputation for being respectable, honest, diligent and private housemaids who avoided eye contact with their employers. Working 6.5 days a week for 12 to 14 hours a day. Christine and Leah never grumbled, and appeared to relish the opportunity to collaborate. They visited their mum on the one half-day off from work. They sewed gorgeous outfits while they were alone in the attic, using methods Christine probably picked up at the orphanage. The mansion was home to René, his wife and their grown-up daughter, while their other daughter had moved out to live with her husband. A few years later, after Christine and Leah began serving the Lancelin, Madame Leonie fell prey to despair, making the Papins the focus of her psychotic episode. She started to carefully inspect the cleaning, and had started to criticize the work done. Madame Lancelin allegedly physically assaulted them on several occasions. At its worst, she would slam the girls' heads against the wall. The abuse got worse. Monsieur Lancelin was scheduled to have dinner with Madame Leonie and Genevieve at a friend's house on the evening of February 2, 1933. Madame Leonie and Genevieve had gone shopping that day. That afternoon, when they got home, there were no lights on. The Papin sisters informed Madame Lancelin that Christine had plugged in a defective iron, which was the reason for the power loss. On the first-floor landing, the sisters were attacked by Madame Lancelin when she became enraged. Genevieve was attacked by Christine, who cut out both of her eyes. Following Christine's instructions, Leah entered the altercation and attacked Madame Lancelin by gouging out her eyes. Christine sprinted downstairs to the kitchen and grabbed a hammer and a knife. The sisters continued their assault upstairs. Once she carried both weapons there, one of the sisters eventually took a large pewter pitcher and struck both Lancelin women in the heads with it. Monsieur Lancelin found the house dark when he got home later. He went to the party himself, after assuming that his wife and daughter had departed for the dinner gathering. He discovered that his family was missing. When he got to his friend's house, he and his son-in-law went back to their house, where they found it still dark throughout the house. They were unable to enter the residence, since the front door was bolted shut from the inside. The two men thought this was odd, and immediately called the police. They went back to the Lancelin residence with the policeman, who had entered the residence by scaling the garden wall. The bodies of Madame Lancelin and her daughter were inside when they arrived. They were both so badly beaten and stabbed that they were no longer recognizably human. Leah and Christine were given their own prison cells. Christine became quite upset as a result. She was eventually allowed to meet her sister, and when she did, she immediately threw herself into her arms. The discussion that ensued suggested that the sisters had been developing a sexual bond. A few months later, Christine experienced a psychotic break and attempted to gouge her own eyes out. A straitjacket was used to rapidly detain and calm her down. Christine implied that her actions were the result of mental illness when she told the authorities that she had experienced a similar fit the day of the murder. The public's pressure increased as the trial was ready to begin, and the entire country of France closely followed it. The case caught the attention of the intellectual elite of the time because they claimed that the murders were a result of the class struggle, because the girls, who stood in for the working class, fought against their wealthy overlords. This was a reflection of the deplorable living circumstances to those who served the wealthy had to endure. The sisters were temporarily mad at the time of the murder, the defense contended. As proof of a hereditary propensity towards insanity, they listed a cousin who passed away in an asylum, a grandpa who was prone to violent temper tantrums, and an uncle who had committed himself. Following the trial, psychological specialists contended that the Papin sisters had folie à deux, a disorder characterized by shared psychosis, hearing voices, feeling persecuted, having the potential to incite violence in believed self-defense against imagined threats, and inappropriate sexual emotions were among the symptoms of the common paranoid psychosis. Paranoid individuals frequently identify a mother figure as a persecutor. In this case, Madame Lancelin served as the persecutor. In these situations, one partner will frequently exert dominance over the other, just like Christine did with Leah. As the paranoid individual might seem fairly normal, which is how the sisters would have likely seemed to the prosecution during their trial. Paranoid schizophrenia can be challenging to diagnose. The Papin sisters were found to be insane, and thus guilty by the court, on September 30, 1933. Christine Papin was found guilty and given the guillotine death penalty in the public square of Le Mans. Leah Papin received a lesser sentence of 10 years of hard labor. Since she was regarded as an accomplice, Christine started to starving herself, and as a result, she passed away in 1937. Leah Papin was released after serving 8 years for good behavior. She afterwards moved in with her mother and used a false name to live a long and peaceful life.